Kia ora, good evening. Drought conditions on the east coast of the South Island have officially been declared as being a medium-scale adverse effect. The status recognises the extreme conditions farmers and growers are facing and triggers additional government support to rural support trusts who work closely with farmers, providing support and guidance. The areas affected cover parts of Otago, Canterbury and Marlborough. At this stage, Southland farmers are not in a position to offer extra feed to the drought-stricken area as they have in previous conditions. Instead, Federated Farmers Southland are urging dairy farmers who winter feed cows in central and north Otago to make contact with grazers urgently to confirm feed availability. Inland Revenue will now be able to exercise its income equalisation discretion to help provide relief for drought-affected farmers. The IRD assistance will give greater flexibility to farmers around the tax obligations and is designed to make the coming months easier for them as they deal with the effects of the drought. The income equalisation scheme allows farmers to better manage peaks and troughs in their income by allowing money to be put aside from a better year and withdrawn against in a not so good year. Affected farmers, and in particular dairy farmers, are also likely to be talking with accountants about their 2014 to 15 provisional tax calculations. Early tax refunds will also be allowed. Invercargill ratepayers have given their feedback via an online questionnaire about earthquake-prone buildings in the central business district. Based on a survey model that Dunedin City Council used, the survey was a test to see if some of DCC's incentives might be relevant to Invercargill. Although there's no legislation in force regarding requirements for building owners and councils yet, the survey does preempt questions that could be posed. One question that received a strong response was whether council should buy earthquake-prone buildings, upgrade them and sell them on.
I think it's really interesting that almost 75% of the respondents said no, and bearing in mind that most of our respondents were residential ratepayers, I think it's really interesting that they are saying, council, that's not your job, that's private enterprise's job. And so I think that is one of the directions that we can take from this. Now, once the legislation comes in, we will go out and we'll do further consultation to see whether or not that's still the case. But at least it gives us a feel for what the community's thinking.
What other key findings did you find interesting out of this?
I think the other key finding is we asked the community whether or not they wanted to be able to go onto council's website and see whether or not a building they were either going to move into, shop in, do business in, whether or not it was earthquake prone. And a large number of people said they did want that information to be available. Now, once again, that may be a requirement when we know the changes to the legislation. At this stage, we don't know, but we tested the water to see if that's something that the community felt was a good idea. And it certainly seems to be that is where the community would like to be.
So at the moment, that transparency is not a requirement, but people are looking at it from a safety perspective, do you think?
I think people want to know. I think earthquake-prone buildings is difficult for a residential person or a general person to know. If a building is earthquake-prone or not earthquake-prone, that might allow them to make a decision on whether or not they want to go into that building, or how safe or comfortable they're in that building, or how long they want to be in that building for.
How important is the architecture that we have in Invercargill City with being a flat environment? How important is it that we try and maintain as much of the facades that we can?
I think that Invercargill, because it's flat, we're a provincial centre with some wonderful architecture and streetscapes. I think it's really important. That's my perspective. I think it's really important. It helps make Invercargill what it is. Now, if we find that a lot of those buildings are earthquake prone, then maybe there is value in the community as a whole investing money into some of those buildings so that they are retained.
You're saying community as a whole, as in via City Council?
Yes, via rates or community funders, but the community have invested in something that they value, even although it's owned by someone else. And that's one of the conundrums, is that why should ratepayers be putting money into a private property? But, as I say, if we want to appreciate the heritage on the facade of that building, then maybe there is a public good aspect to it. Very difficult to quantify, And I think there'll be a lot of discussion in the community as to whether or not that's something we should be doing or we should not be doing.
A national survey of public hospital inpatients is helping to identify where improvement is necessary, according to the Health Quality and Safety Commission. Over 6,000 inpatients between the 3rd and 16th of November last year were asked to rate their experience and whether their needs were met appropriately.
The Southern DHB received a response rate of just 20%, lower than the national average of 27%. Overall experience for the Southern DHB was consistent with national averages, except a higher 91% of people felt staff listened to them. A low score of 48% of people saying a member of staff told them about side effects of medication was consistent with DHBs throughout the country. HQSC said these numbers show there is still work to be done.
But a new patient IT system being introduced to South Island DHBs could see patient care improve. The South Island Patient Information Care System, or SIPICS, will be phased in over the next 2 to 5 years, replacing 7 existing administration systems in hospitals. The New Zealand Health Minister said the IT system will make the electronic transfer of patient information safer and more efficient. The program will manage patient appointments, admissions, discharges and transfers across all DHBs. A training simulation that includes a full response for emergency personnel, volunteers and staff took place at Invercargill Airport last night. Once every 2 years, the system is tested to make sure in the event of an emergency landing, rapid runway response is at hand.
The exercise simulates a plane that has had an emergency with one of its engines. So there's a fire in the engine, the pilot shuts it down, declares a full emergency, and then they come and do a heavy landing essentially on the runway. And at that point, everything is activated. So at that point, then we have our airport rescue fire who go out straight away to the incident, and from town we have all of our emergency services, so our ambulance, our fire and our police all come out to assist. We also have a number of volunteers, very brave, hardy volunteers, 40 of those. They come from everywhere, the BNZ, the Red Cross, and then we also have 16 observers, and they come from all different agencies, everywhere from Customs to the District Health Board to Emergency Management Southland. So it's quite a large number of people involved. So my major concern, obviously, firstly, life and limb. Let's make sure that we take care of the people on board the plane, and also our people who are meeting and greeting those people. And then really for me it's about communication. We're a regional airport, and it's really important that all of our emergency services are familiar with the airport surrounds, and they know exactly how to manoeuvre on the airport. And the communication between the agencies and between the airport staff as well.
Do stay with us. Still to come on the bulletin, we hear how an alternative lighting trial is putting Windsor in the spotlight. Welcome back. Invercargill has been undergoing a council-run lighting trial to determine the most efficient means of lighting city streets. For 18 months, 4 blocks of Windsor street lights have been fitted with new heads in order to trial LED lighting technology and find out the best lighting and price for Invercargill residents.
LED lighting is, I guess, the next generation of street lighting. It's much more efficient, and I guess as the technology was emerging, we were trying to evaluate which fittings we'd use and how they would go and those sorts of things.
And so what are the benefits so far?
Well, LED lighting is uses about half the power, and it's quite a white light, so what we're looking at is trying to decide on what colour light would be the best for the footpath areas and see which fittings work best in our environment.
And have you had any feedback from the public?
Interestingly enough, no. People haven't actually noticed we've changed, and we've done some surveys about whether people thought they were better or worse or what they liked, but generally street lighting like that is often it goes a little bit unnoticed.
And is the new lighting something that's going to be rolled out in other areas?
Over that time, in the last 18 months, LED technologies have got a lot cheaper for everybody, so that is the future of street lighting, and at the moment we're currently looking at rolling that out across areas as we upgrade them. It'll become the standard. As we're doing up Esk Street in South City, we'll be putting LED lights in there. They're just more efficient, and you can control them better, so that's actually a really good technology.
Would the cheaper power reflect on rates at all?
Potentially yes, we'll actually have some savings in there, but how that comes through we'll yet to see, because it takes some time to replace. We have about 7,500 lights, so it will take some time for those to come through, and our forward budgets are predicting lower operating costs, but there is more money to be spent investing and replacing them as they need to.
Falling fuel prices are to blame for a drop in retail spending, according to Statistics New Zealand.
Spending on fuel fell in January for the third consecutive month, which coincided with falling fuel prices. But despite the drop in fuel, other industries showed a strong start to the year. The largest retail movements for January were fuel down 48 million or 6.7%, while consumables were up 1.3% and durables up 0.9%. Cardholders nationally made 125 million transactions in January with an average value of $50. But February's report may look a little different, with AA's Petrol Watch noting a change in fuel prices for the month. Both BP and Z petrol stations have increased petrol prices another 4 cents, the fourth rise in just over a week.
Meanwhile, an accommodation survey shows national guest nights are on the rise. Guest nights for December last year was 7.1% higher than December 2013, marking the 9th consecutive month of rises. While Canterbury and Otago were the main regions contributing to the national increase, all 12 regional areas had increases. South Island regions were up almost 10%, with the domestic guest nights up 5.4% and international up 9.5%. After removing seasonal variation, national guest nights rose 0.3% in December compared to November last year. Good summer weather is being credited for a strong residential real estate market in December, but January was off to a slow start.
A report released by the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand shows while the country's real estate sales for January are up 2.6% from the same time last year, they fell 31.5% compared to December 2014. In Southland, sales volumes rose 16% compared to January last year, with a 186% increase in Gore and a 4% increase in Invercargill. Compared to December, sale volumes fell 21% for the region. REINZ said the data for January reflects the typical summer slowdown at this time of the year, with volumes dropping back and prices easing across the country.
Now let's take a look at the region's weather.
Your forecast on Q is brought to you by Environment Southland. Environment Southland wants to know what you think about our recreational water areas. Where do you go? What do you do? And your thoughts about the water quality. You could win one of 5 $100 vouchers simply by completing their survey. The survey will help them find out whether the water is being tested in the right places and how the service can be improved. Complete the survey online by going to Environment Southland's website or pick up a hard copy from Environment Southland, the Southland District Council, Gore District Council, Invercargill City Council or Public Health South.
And time now to take a look at the weather for today, Thursday the 12th of February. Early 20s for many of the regions around the country. Auckland on 23 today, Capital City on 22, Christchurch 21, the low of 17 recorded in Dunedin, Queenstown 23, Gore the high on 24 and Invercargill 22, no recording for Stewart Island today. Tomorrow a few showers clearing early afternoon and becoming fine, strong westerlies turning southerly in the morning then dying out overnight. Wyndham expecting a high of 17 tomorrow, Gore 16, as is Invercargill. And Tiana's got the overnight low tonight of 4, heading for a high of 17 tomorrow. In the marine forecast for FOVO, there's a gale warning in force, northwest knots of 25, changing to westerly 35 knots, southwest swell of 3 metres and fair visibility and a few showers. A storm warning in force for Pusaga, southwest swells of 4 metres and northwest of 3 metres and poor visibility and rain. And in the long range forecast for Saturday, fine with light winds but easterlies about the coast. Sunday areas of morning cloud, then fine with light winds and fine and light winds on Monday. And that's it from us tonight. From the news team, we'll see you again tomorrow evening. Good night.